The grand chamber of the Galactic High Court was built to make lesser beings feel small. Massive pillars of black stone rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. 1,200 species had sent their representatives to fill the circular rows of seats, and all of them looked down at the single figure standing in the center of the floor. Megan Cole was 19 years old. She had brown hair tied back in a rough ponytail and dirt still under her fingernails from the colony she would never see again. She wore prisoner clothes made of rough gray fabric, and heavy chains connected her wrists to her ankles. The chains were designed for creatures 3 times her size. The aliens who put them on her did not understand that humans could stand upright even under such weight. She stood straight. She did not look at the ground. She looked directly at the High Arbiter. Zorvan sat on a throne carved from a single piece of crystal. He was 7 feet tall, with skin that looked like pale blue glass and eyes that held no warmth. He had judged criminals across the galaxy for 300 years. He had sentenced entire species to extinction. A single human girl was nothing to him. "The accused has been found guilty," Zorvan said. His voice filled the chamber without effort. "The destruction of the sacred vessel Velither's glory is a crime beyond forgiveness. The sentence is death." A sound moved through the crowd. Some species clicked their approval. Others remained silent. In the section reserved for humans, Ambassador Daniel Price shot to his feet. "This is wrong," he shouted. "She destroyed that ship because it was harvesting human colonists. Your own evidence shows this. Those were our people being cut apart for experiments." Zorvan turned his cold eyes toward the ambassador. "The activities aboard Velither's glory were sanctioned research. Your species agreed to the Galactic Compact. Article 7 clearly states that minor species may be subject to study for the benefit of greater civilizations. We never agreed to be dissected like animals." "You are animals," Zorvan said simply. "You come from a violent world. You have been part of the galactic community for less than 50 years. You have no standing to question this court." 2 guards moved toward Ambassador Price. They were Korathi, massive creatures with 4 arms and skin like stone. Each one was strong enough to tear a human apart. Price did not back down, but he could not stop them from grabbing his arms. "This isn't over," Price said as they dragged him toward the exit. "Earth will not forget this." "Earth will do nothing," Zorvan replied. "Earth is weak. Earth is small. Earth will accept this judgment and be grateful we do not demand more." The doors slammed shut behind the ambassador. The chamber fell silent again. Zorvan looked back at Megan. She had not moved during the entire exchange. She had not spoken a single word during the 3 days of her trial. The court had not allowed her to speak in her own defense. Her testimony was considered irrelevant. "Do you have anything to say before sentence is carried out?" Zorvan asked. It was a formality. He did not expect her to answer. Megan raised her head slightly. For the first time, she spoke. Yes, the word was quiet, but it carried. The acoustics of the chamber made even whispers audible. Zorvan leaned forward slightly, curious despite himself. "I remember their names," Megan said. "Every colonist on Haven's Edge. Every man, woman, and child who disappeared in the night. I found what was left of them in your sacred ship. I saw what your people did to them." She paused. Her voice remained calm and steady. "You think you have sentenced me to death. You are wrong. You have sentenced yourself." A few aliens in the crowd laughed. A human threatening the High Arbiter was absurd. It was like watching an insect threaten a mountain. Zorvan did not laugh. Something in the girl's eyes made him uneasy, though he could not say why. He pushed the feeling aside. He had executed thousands. One more would make no difference. "Take her away," he commanded. 4 guards surrounded Megan. They grabbed her chains and pulled her toward the side door that led to the execution chambers. She did not resist. She walked with them calmly, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. As she passed through the doorway, she turned her head slightly. She looked at one of the guards, a young Velithran who seemed nervous. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," she said softly. "Now it's too late." The guard shivered but said nothing. The door closed behind them. In the chamber, the representatives began to leave. The trial was over. The human would be dead within the hour. It was not interesting enough to discuss for long. Only a few noticed that Ambassador Price had not actually left the station. He was standing in a corridor outside the chamber, speaking quietly into a communication device. "She's been sentenced," he said. "We're out of time." A woman's voice responded through the device. "Understood. We're moving to phase 2. Katie, if this goes wrong, it won't go wrong," the woman said. "She's not just some colonist, Daniel. She's something else entirely. The Velithrans have no idea what they've caught." Price closed his eyes. "I hope you're right, because if she dies in there, we'll have a war on our hands anyway. The people back home are already calling for blood." "She won't die," Katie said. "Trust me. That girl survived things that would kill any of us 10 times over. A few alien guards won't stop her." The communication ended. Price looked at the closed doors of the chamber. Behind them, 1,200 species were congratulating themselves on putting humanity in its place. They did not know that everything was about to change. Deep in the detention level, Megan Cole sat alone in her cell. The chains were heavier now, bolted to the wall and the floor. The guards had added extra restraints around her neck and shoulders. They were taking no chances. She sat in silence, her eyes closed. Anyone watching would think she was praying, or perhaps accepting her death. She was doing neither. She was counting. The guards changed shifts every 6 hours. The power grid fluctuated slightly every time the station's engines adjusted course. There was a gap, just a few seconds, when the electronic locks on her cell operated on backup power. 90 seconds. That was all she needed. She had waited 19 years to find the ones responsible for what happened to her family, to her world, to everyone she had ever loved. She had let them capture her. She had let them put her on trial. She had let them think she was weak. Now they would learn the truth. Megan opened her eyes. In the dim light of her cell, they seemed to glow with something cold and patient. The Velithrans called humans animals. They were about to find out just how dangerous an animal from Earth could be. The ventilation shaft above Megan's cell made a soft clicking sound. She did not look up. She had been expecting this. "Megan Cole," a woman's voice whispered through the metal grate. "My name is Katie Morgan. I'm a lieutenant in Earth's military. I'm here to help you." "I know who you are," Megan replied quietly. "I saw you in the chamber during the trial. 3rd row, left side. You were wearing civilian clothes, but you moved like a soldier." There was a pause. "You're observant." "I was trained to be." Katie shifted in the shaft, bringing her face closer to the grate. She could barely see the girl in the darkness below. "We don't have much time. Earth can't officially help you. If we're caught breaking you out, it means war. But unofficially, I can give you a window." "How long?" 90 seconds. "There's going to be a power failure in exactly 12 minutes. During that time, the backup generators will handle essential systems, but the electronic locks on this level will reset. You'll have 90 seconds before they come back online." Megan nodded slowly. "What about the guards?" 2 outside your door. 4 more at the end of the corridor. After that, you're in the maintenance tunnels. I've uploaded a map to a data chip. I'm dropping it now." A tiny object fell through the grate. Megan caught it without looking, her hand moving faster than seemed possible. Katie noticed. "The files we have on you say you were just a colonist from Haven's Edge. But that's not true, is it? Megan was silent for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice flat and without emotion. When I was 6 years old, my colony was attacked by raiders. Everyone died except me. The government found me 3 weeks later, living in the ruins. They decided I was useful. Useful how? They put me in a program called Project Amaranth. They wanted to see how far they could push human limits, how much we could survive. They trained me for 12 years. Combat, survival, infiltration. They broke me down and built me back up until I wasn't afraid of anything. Katie felt cold despite the warmth of the shaft. What happened to the program? They shut it down. Said it was too extreme. They gave us new identities and sent us to live normal lives on colony worlds. Megan's voice hardened. I chose Haven's Edge because it was quiet. Because I wanted to forget what I was. And then the Velithrans came. Yes, they came in the night. They took people from their homes. Families, children, old people. At first we thought it was raiders again. But raiders don't take people alive. Raiders don't leave behind surgical equipment. Megan stood up slowly, the chains rattling against the floor. I followed them, she continued. I tracked them for 3 months through the void. I found their ship. I saw what they were doing to my people. They were taking us apart piece by piece, studying what made us different. What made us survive things other species couldn't. So you destroyed the ship. I destroyed everything. The ship, the research, the scientists. I made sure nothing was left. Her voice dropped lower. But I couldn't save the ones they had already taken. I was too late for them. Katie was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke carefully. Megan, what are you going to do after you escape? I'm going to kill Zorvan. That's suicide. He has an army of guards. He has the entire station on his side. I don't care. Earth needs you alive. You're living proof of what the Velithrans did. If you die here, they win. Megan looked up at the grate. Even in the darkness, Katie could feel the weight of her gaze. They murdered my family, Megan said. They murdered my neighbors, my friends, the children I used to teach. And that judge sat in his throne and called it legal. He called it sanctioned research. He said we were animals. She pulled against her chains, testing them. I'm going to show him what an animal can do. Katie realized she could not change the girl's mind. She also realized, with growing certainty, that Megan might actually succeed. 8 minutes until the power failure, Katie said. Good luck. I don't need luck. Katie began to crawl backward through the shaft. She paused one last time. There's someone waiting for you in the maintenance tunnels. A Karathi named Thorn. He owes a debt to humanity. He'll guide you to the lower levels. Why would a Karathi help a human? During the border wars, a human soldier saved his life. Carried him 3 miles through enemy fire with 2 broken legs. Thorn has been waiting 30 years to repay that debt. Megan absorbed this information. Tell him I'll be there. Katie disappeared into the darkness. Megan was alone again. She looked at the chains binding her wrists. They were made of a metal alloy designed to restrain creatures far stronger than humans. The Velithrans believed they were unbreakable. They were wrong. Megan had learned long ago that the human body could do impossible things when pushed beyond its limits. Pain was just information. Joints were just leverage points. She took a deep breath and focused. Then she dislocated both of her shoulders. The pain was immense. Any normal person would have screamed. Megan made no sound. She twisted her arms at angles that should have been impossible, sliding her hands through the restraints 1 finger at a time. 30 seconds later, her hands were free. She popped her shoulders back into place with 2 quick movements, ignoring the agony that shot through her body. The lights flickered. The power failure had begun. The electronic lock on her cell door made a soft click as it reset. Megan pushed the door open and stepped into the corridor. Two guards stood with their backs to her. They were still looking at their instruments, trying to figure out why the power had failed. They never saw her coming. Megan moved like water, silent and fast. She struck the first guard in the throat, crushing his windpipe before he could make a sound. She caught his weapon as he fell, spinning to face the second guard. He was faster than she expected. He raised his rifle and fired. Megan was already moving. The shot burned past her ear, close enough to singe her hair. She closed the distance in 2 steps, driving her palm into his face with enough force to shatter bone. Both guards were down. 8 seconds had passed. She ran. The corridor stretched. Ahead of her, red emergency lights casting everything in shadow. At the end, 4 more guards were scrambling to respond to the alert. Megan did not slow down. She hit them like a storm, using the confined space to her advantage. They could not bring their superior firepower to bear without hitting each other. She was inside their reach before they could react, striking at joints and pressure points, turning their size against them. 20 seconds later, she stood alone among the fallen. 70 seconds remaining. She found the entrance to the maintenance tunnels and dropped into the darkness below. A massive shape was waiting for her. Thorn was 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin like gray granite. He looked at the blood on her hands and the cold fire in her eyes. "You are the human," he said. His voice was like gravel. "Yes, they said you would need help escaping." Megan looked back the way she had come. Alarms were beginning to wail throughout the station. "I don't need help escaping," she said. "I need help finding Zorvan." Thorn studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Follow me," he said. "I know the way." The lower levels of Axiom Prime were a different world. Above, the station gleamed with wealth and power. Below, it rotted. Broken lights flickered in flooded corridors. Refugees from a dozen forgotten wars huddled in makeshift shelters. The forgotten and the abandoned made their homes in the darkness. Thorn led Megan through passages that did not appear on any official map. He moved quietly for a creature his size, his 4 arms pulling him through narrow gaps with surprising grace. "The Velithrans do not come here," he explained. "They believe the lower levels are beneath them." They are correct, but not in the way they think. Megan followed close behind. Her body ached from the dislocations and the fight. She ignored the pain. She had ignored worse. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To someone who can help you reach the upper spires. Her name is Varys. She runs a network that smuggles escaped prisoners off the station. She has no love for the Velithrans." "Why not?" Thorn was quiet for a moment. 50 years ago, the Velithrans decided that her species was taking up too much space in a system they wanted. So they removed them. Removed? Genocide. 3 billion dead in a single week. The council called it population management. Varys is one of the few survivors. Megan processed this information. The Velithrans were even worse than she had realized. Her hatred for Zorvan grew colder and harder. They reached a hidden door set into a wall of rusted metal. Thorn knocked in a specific pattern. After a moment, the door slid open. Inside was a small chamber filled with salvaged technology. Screens covered the walls, showing feeds from across the station. In the center sat a creature unlike any Megan had seen before. Varys was small, barely 4 feet tall, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Her eyes were large and completely black, and they held a depth of sorrow that seemed endless. "So this is the human who killed the High Arbiter's guards," Varys said. Her voice was soft and musical. "You have caused quite a panic in the upper levels. Zorvan has declared a station-wide emergency." "Good," Megan said. Varys tilted her head. "You do not seem afraid." "I'm not. You should be. Zorvan has released the Silverine." Thorn made a sound like stones grinding together. It took Megan a moment to realize it was fear. "What are the Silverine?" she asked. "Hunters," Thorn said. "The Velithrans bred them centuries ago to track and kill escaped prisoners. They have never failed to catch their prey. They can smell fear across an entire station. They can hear a heartbeat through solid walls." Megan's expression did not change. "How many?" "5, Varys said. "5 is all they have ever needed. Then I'll kill 5. Varys and Thorn exchanged a look. They had both seen terrible things in their lives. They had both survived horrors that would break most beings. But there was something in this human girl that was different. Something that made them believe she might actually succeed. "Before you go to your death," Varys said, "there is something you should know. The experiments on your people were not an isolated incident. The Council approved them. They have been studying humans for decades, trying to understand your species." "Why?" Varys pulled up data on one of her screens. It showed biological readouts, genetic sequences, information that Megan could barely understand. "Humans are unique," Varys explained. "You come from a world that should have killed you 1,000 times over. Mass extinctions, ice ages, supervolcanoes, cosmic radiation. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on gentle worlds. You evolved on a death trap." She pointed to specific sections of the data. "Your bodies are capable of things that terrify the other species. You can survive injuries that would kill most beings. You can adapt to environments that would destroy others. You can push through pain and exhaustion that would shut down alien nervous systems. And the Velithrans want to steal this," Megan said. "They want to understand it. They want to copy it. They fear that one day humans will realize what you truly are. And when that day comes, nothing in the galaxy will be able to stop you." Megan looked at the data. She thought of her people on Haven's Edge, taken apart in laboratories so that aliens could learn their secrets. She thought of Zorvan calling them animals. "They were right to be afraid," she said. An alarm suddenly blared from one of Varys's screens. She turned to look, and her face went pale. "The Silverine, they have tracked you here. How long?" "Minutes. Perhaps less." Megan looked around the chamber. There was only one entrance. No escape route. "Get Varys out of here," she told Thorn. "Use the tunnels. I'll hold him off." Thorn shook his massive head. "I will not leave you to fight alone." "I don't need. I owe a debt," Thorn said firmly. "A human saved my life. I have waited 30 years to repay that debt. I will not run now." Megan looked at him. She saw the determination in his stone-like face. She understood that arguing would waste time they did not have. "Fine," she said. "Stay behind me. Kill anything that gets past." She grabbed a metal pipe from a pile of salvage. It was not much, but she had killed with less. The door exploded inward. The Silverine were nightmares made flesh. They stood on 4 legs, but had 2 additional arms tipped with claws like curved blades. Their heads were eyeless, covered instead with sensory organs that could detect the smallest movement, the faintest sound, the slightest scent of fear. There were 5 of them. They filled the corridor outside, their bodies coiled to strike. The first one lunged. Megan moved. She ducked under its claws and drove the pipe into the soft tissue under its jaw. The creature screamed, a sound like metal tearing. She twisted the pipe and pulled, ripping out something vital. The Silverine collapsed. The second and third attacked together. Megan spun between them, using their own momentum against them. She caught one's arm and redirected its claws into the other's body. While they tangled, she crushed the first one's sensory cluster with a savage kick. 2 down, 3 remaining. The survivors were more cautious now. They circled, trying to flank her. Megan kept moving, never letting them coordinate. One of them got past her. It lunged toward Varys. Thorn intercepted it. His forearms grabbed the creature and held it despite its thrashing. He squeezed, and something cracked, but the Silverine's claws found him too. They raked across his chest, opening deep wounds in his stone-like skin. Thorn roared in pain, but did not let go. Megan killed the fourth hunter with a blow to its spine. She turned to help Thorn, but the fifth Silverine was already on her dot. It was faster than the others. Its claws slashed across her back, drawing blood. She rolled with the impact, coming up with a broken blade she had torn from one of the fallen hunters. The creature circled her, its sensory organs twitching. It could smell her blood. It could hear her rapid heartbeat, but it could not smell fear, because there was none. Megan attacked. The Silverine met her charge, claws flashing. They moved in a blur of violence, too fast for Varys to follow. Blood sprayed across the walls. Then it was over. Megan stood over the fifth hunter's body, the blade buried in its skull. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Her breath came in ragged gasps, but she was alive. And the hunters were not. She turned to Thorn. He was slumped against the wall, his hands pressed against the wounds in his chest. Green blood seeped between his fingers. "You fought well," he said weakly. "I have never seen anything like it." Megan knelt beside him. "You saved Varys. The debt is paid." Thorn shook his head slowly. "No, the debt grows larger. Now I owe you my life as well as the life of my rescuer." He reached out with one massive hand and gripped her shoulder. "Finish this," he said. "Find Zorvan. Make him understand what he has awakened." Megan stood. She looked at the bodies of the Silverine, the hunters who had never failed. They had failed now. She walked to the door and paused. She pulled a communicator from one of the fallen hunters and activated it. "Zorvan," she said. "Can you hear me?" Static. Then a cold, familiar voice. "How are you still alive?" "Your hunters are dead. All 5 of them. I'm coming for you next." Silence. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," Megan said. "Now nothing will stop me." She crushed the communicator in her hand and walked into the darkness. The hunt was over. Now the reckoning would begin. The upper spires of Axiom Prime were built to show power. They rose toward the stars like monuments to the glory of the Velithran Empire. The wealthiest and most powerful beings in the galaxy made their homes here, far above the filth of the lower levels. Tonight, the spires were full of fear. Word had spread quickly. The Silverine were dead. All 5 of them, killed by a single human girl. Security teams were mobilizing across the station. Velithran nobles were sealing themselves in their chambers, demanding protection, and Zorvan sat in his throne room, surrounded by his personal guard. Waiting. He had ruled this station for 300 years. He had sentenced thousands to death. He had watched entire species kneel before him. He was not afraid of one human, but he was beginning to wonder if perhaps he should be. "Double the guards at every entrance," he ordered. "Seal the emergency bulkheads. No one enters without my personal authorization." "Yes, High Arbiter," his captain replied. "Should we evacuate you to a secure location?" "No." Zorvan's crystalline face was hard. "I will not run from an animal. I will not run from an animal. Let her come. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who challenge Velithran authority." He leaned back in his throne. Around him, 24 elite guards stood ready, each one armed with weapons that could punch through starship armor. The walls were lined with defensive systems. The doors were reinforced to withstand explosive assault. It was, by any reasonable measure, impenetrable. Zorvan allowed himself a cold smile. The human had been lucky so far. Her luck was about to end. Far below, in the maintenance corridors between the lower levels and the spires. Megan was moving upward. She had found a service route that connected the station's power systems. It was narrow and dangerous, filled with high-voltage conduits and radiation shielding. No one used it because no one could survive the journey. Megan survived. She climbed through heat that would cook most species alive. She squeezed through gaps that scraped skin from her bones. She pulled herself past electrical barriers that made her muscles spasm and her vision blur. She did not stop. She did not slow down. A voice crackled through the communicator in her ear. It was Katie Morgan. "Megan, we've managed to get something into the station for you. Check the junction box at level 47. Megan found the junction box and opened it. Inside was a small package wrapped in dark cloth. She unwrapped it carefully. Her eyes widened slightly. Inside was a combat blade, perfectly balanced, forged from steel made on Earth. Its edge gleamed even in the dim light. There was also a small note. "Make it count. Commander Holloway, Silent Wind." Megan held the blade. It felt right in her hand. It felt like justice. "Tell the commander thank you," she said into the communicator. "He says you can thank him yourself when this is over. Now keep moving. You have about 20 minutes before Zorvan's reinforcements arrive from the outer ring." Megan resumed her climb. 10 minutes later, she emerged into the upper spires. The change was immediate. Clean air instead of recycled waste. Polished floors instead of rusted metal. Soft lighting instead of flickering emergency lamps. And guards. Many guards. Megan moved through them like a ghost. She had spent 12 years learning how to disappear, how to strike without warning, how to kill without making a sound. The guards were trained to fight armies. They were not trained to fight something like her. She left bodies in her wake. Quick, clean kills. No suffering, no time to raise alarms. Just silence and shadows and death. The Velithran nobles who saw her coming did not understand at first. They saw a small human girl, wounded and dirty, walking calmly through their pristine corridors. They thought she was lost. They thought she was confused. Then they saw her eyes. There was nothing human in those eyes. Nothing soft, nothing merciful. Just cold purpose and absolute determination. They ran. Megan did not chase them. She had only one target. She reached the doors to Zorvan's throne room. They were massive, designed to withstand bombardment. She could hear movement on the other side. Many guards, waiting. She pressed her hand against the cold metal. "I'm here," she said quietly. "Open the doors." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Zorvan's voice came through a speaker. "You are brave, human. Foolish, but brave. You could have escaped. You could have lived. Instead, you came here to die." "Open the doors," Megan repeated. "Why?" "So you can attack my guards? So you can attempt your pathetic revenge? You are one small creature against 24 trained soldiers. This is not a fair fight." Megan almost smiled. "You're right. It isn't fair. You should have brought more." Silence. Then the doors began to open. Zorvan had decided to end this personally. He wanted to watch her die. He wanted to see the hope fade from her eyes as his guards cut her down. He got his wish, partially. Megan exploded through the doors before they were fully open. She hit the first line of guards at full speed, her blade flashing in the light. The fight was brutal and short, and nothing like Zorvan expected. Humans, he had been told, were slow, weak, fragile. They could not compete with the superior species of the galaxy. This human moved like liquid fire. She flowed between attacks that should have killed her. She struck with precision that seemed impossible. She took wounds that would have dropped a Velithran warrior and kept fighting as if she felt nothing. Guards fell. 1, 2, 5, 10. They could not coordinate against her. She was too fast, too close, too savage. Every time they tried to bring their weapons to bear, she was already somewhere else. Already killing someone else. Zorvan watched in growing horror as his elite, guard was dismantled by a creature half their size. "Stop her!" he screamed. "Someone stop her!" No one could stop her. In less than 2 minutes, it was over. The throne room was silent, except for Zorvan's ragged breathing and the soft drip of blood from Megan's blade. She walked toward him slowly. Her body was a map of wounds. Her prisoner clothes were soaked with blood, some hers, most not. She should have collapsed. She should have been dead 10 times over. She kept walking. Zorvan backed against his throne. For the first time in 300 years, he felt genuine terror. "Wait," he said. "You cannot do this. I am the High Arbiter. I have diplomatic immunity. If you kill me, the Veluthran Empire will destroy your species." Megan stopped in front of him. She looked up at his towering form with no expression on her face. "Earth didn't send me," she said. "I sent myself. They will burn your homeworld. They will exterminate every human in the galaxy. Maybe, but you won't be there to see it." She raised her blade. "Wait." Zorvan's voice cracked. "I can give you information. The experiments, the Council's involvement, everything. I can give you evidence that will expose them all. I already have that evidence. A friend of mine is sharing it with the galaxy right now." Zorvan's eyes widened. "Then what do you want?" Megan leaned closer. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I want you to know how they felt. The colonists you murdered. The children you took apart in your labs. The families who died screaming while you called it research." She pressed the blade against his throat. "I want you to feel what they felt. Helpless, terrified, alone." "Please," Zorvan whispered. The word was foreign in his mouth. He had never begged in his life. "That's what they said," Megan replied. "You didn't listen." She pushed the blade forward. Zorvan fell. Megan stood over his body for a long moment. She felt no satisfaction, no triumph. Just a cold emptiness where her rage had been. It was done. The doors behind her opened. She turned blade ready, expecting more guards. Instead, she saw a tall, ancient being in flowing robes. Council Speaker Nadari had come to see the result personally. Behind Nadari stood a dozen guards from different species. "Not Veluthran, neutral." "The human?" Nadari said softly. "I wondered if the reports were true." Megan did not lower her blade. "Are you here to stop me?" "You have already finished. There is nothing to stop." Nadari looked at Zorvan's body. He was a monster. The galaxy is better without him. But what happens now will determine whether your species survives the consequences. Megan felt her strength finally beginning to fade. The wounds, the exhaustion, the impossible effort of the past hours were catching up to her. "Then let's find out," she said. She collapsed before she could take another step. Megan woke in a medical bay that hummed with unfamiliar technology. Soft lights pulsed above her. Strange machines monitored her vital signs with gentle beeps. She tried to move and found her wounds had been treated. Her arms were bandaged. Her back, where the Silverine had cut her, was sealed with something that felt like warm gel. She was alive. For a moment, she did not know why that surprised her. A door slid open. Katie Morgan walked in, followed by Ambassador Price. Both of them looked exhausted but relieved. "You're awake," Katie said. "We weren't sure you would be." The doctor said they've never seen a human take that much damage and survive. Megan sat up slowly. Her body ached, but the pain was manageable. "What happened? How long was I unconscious?" 18 hours, Price said. "A lot has changed in that time." He pulled up a holographic display. It showed news feeds from across the galaxy, all covering the same story. The evidence verus has been broadcast everywhere. The experiments, the Council's approvals, Zorvan's crimes. Every species in the galaxy has seen it. Megan watched the feeds. She saw images of human colonists in laboratories. She saw documents with official seals. She saw reactions of shock and anger from species who had not known what the Velithrans were doing. The Velithrans are claiming it's false, Price continued. But the evidence is too strong. Too many independent sources have verified it. The Council is in emergency session right now, trying to decide what to do. What about Earth? Megan asked. What about the threats of retaliation? Katie and Price exchanged a look. That's the interesting part, Katie said. Come with us. Speaker Nathari wants to see you. They led her through corridors filled with guards from a dozen different species. None of them were Velithran. All of them watched Megan pass with expressions she could not read. They reached the council chamber. It was smaller than the courtroom where Megan had been sentenced, but somehow more important. This was where the real decisions were made. Speaker Nathari sat at the head of a curved table. Around the table sat representatives from the 12 most powerful species in the galaxy. The Velithran seat was empty. Megan Cole, Nathari said. Please, sit. Megan sat. She felt the weight of countless eyes on her. We have been discussing your case for many hours, Nathari continued. There are those who believe you should be executed for murdering the High Arbiter. There are those who believe you should be celebrated as a hero. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. A representative from a species Megan did not recognize spoke up. She killed a judicial official. Whatever his crimes, this was not her decision to make. His crimes included the murder of her people, another representative countered. By our own laws, she had the right to seek justice. Revenge is not justice. Neither is genocide. The argument continued, voices rising and falling around her. Megan listened without expression. She had done what she came to do. Whatever happened next was beyond her control. Finally, Nathari raised a hand. Silence fell. I have made my decision, Nathari said. The evidence against High Arbiter Zovan is undeniable. His actions violated the most fundamental laws of the galactic community. He used his position to sanction crimes against a protected species. Nathari looked directly at Megan. Therefore, I ruled that Megan Cole acted in defense of her people. Her actions, while extreme, were a legitimate response to extreme provocation. She is free to go. Murmurs swept through the chamber. Some approved. Others did not. The Velithran representative, who had been watching from a doorway, stepped forward. His crystalline face was twisted with rage. This is unacceptable. The Velithran Empire will not forget this insult. There will be consequences. There already have been consequences, Nathari replied calmly. Your empire committed atrocities and was exposed. Your High Arbiter died facing someone he wronged. If you wish to pursue vengeance, that is your choice. But I suggest you consider carefully whether you want a war with a species capable of doing what this one girl did alone. The Velithran had no response. He turned and walked out of the chamber. Nathari looked at Megan again. You have made powerful enemies today. The Velithrans will not forget, and they will not forgive. Your life will never be safe again. It never was, Megan said. Something like respect flickered in Nathari's ancient eyes. You are a remarkable creature, Megan Cole. Your species is young, but you have shown the galaxy something it needed to see. Perhaps it is time to reconsider humanity's place in our community. The session was adjourned. Representatives filed out, many of them pausing to look at Megan as they passed. Some looked at her with fear, some with curiosity, a few with something that might have been admiration. Katie and Price escorted Megan to a docking bay where a human ship was waiting. It was small and sleek, designed for stealth rather than combat. The words "Silent Wind" were painted on its hull. A man in a captain's uniform stood at the bottom of the boarding ramp. He was in his 50s, with gray hair and a weathered face. He looked at Megan with eyes that had seen too much. "Commander Holloway," Megan said, "thank you for the blade. Thank you for using it well." Holloway extended his hand. "You're welcome aboard my ship, if you want passage home." Home. The word felt strange. Haven's Edge was gone. Everyone she knew there was dead. Earth was a planet she had never truly known. "I don't have a home," she said. "Then come with us anyway. We could use someone like you." Megan looked at the ship. She thought about what Nadari had said. Powerful enemies. A life that would never be safe. She thought about all the other species who might decide that humans were animals. Worth studying, worth using, worth destroying. "What do you do?" she asked. Holloway smiled slightly. "We watch. We listen. We make sure that what happened to Haven's Edge never happens again. And when diplomacy fails, we do what needs to be done." Megan considered this. It was not peace. It was not rest. It was more fighting, more danger, more death. But it was purpose. "All right," she said. "I'm in." She walked up the ramp. Katie and Price followed. The ramp closed behind them. An hour later, the silent wind slipped away from Axiom Prime and disappeared into the darkness between stars. In the observation deck, Megan stood alone, watching the station shrink into the distance. She thought about the colonists of Haven's Edge. She thought about Zorvan's face in his final moment. She thought about the look of fear in the eyes of every alien who had witnessed her rampage. The galaxy had learned something today. They had learned that humans were not weak. They were not prey. They were not animals to be studied and discarded. They were survivors, fighters, protectors, and they would never forget what had been done to them. Katie joined her at the window. "What are you thinking about?" "The future," Megan said. "The Velithrans won't be the last ones to underestimate us. Sooner or later, someone else will decide that humans are easy targets. And when they do..." Megan turned away from the window. Her wounds were healing. Her strength was returning. The cold fire in her eyes had not dimmed. "When they do," she said, "I'll be there to remind them why that's a mistake." The silent wind flew on, carrying its crew toward whatever came next. Somewhere in the galaxy, Velithran admirals were studying footage of Megan's rampage. They were analyzing every movement, every strike, every impossible survival. They were trying to understand how one small creature had destroyed their best hunters and their highest judge. The eldest admiral watched in silence. When the footage ended, a younger officer turned to him. "What should we do?" the officer asked. The admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with something that might have been wisdom or might have been fear. "We learn from Zorvan's mistake," he said. "We learn to never give a human a reason to fight." The younger officer nodded slowly. He looked at the frozen image on the screen, the human girl standing over the bodies of the Silverine. "And if we cannot avoid conflict with them?" The admiral turned off the screen. The image disappeared, but its memory remained. "Then we pray to whatever gods will listen," he said, "because nothing else will save us." The stars continued to burn in the endless dark, indifferent to the small creatures who lived and died beneath their light. But somewhere among those stars, humanity was waking up to its true potential, and the galaxy would never be the same.